Today on Learning Firearms, we show you how to install one of these so it can be just like this. Hey guys, this is Dave Tim with the Learning Firearms channel. Thank you very much for checking out this video. Today we're going to be doing an install video of the Midwest Industries Gen 3 free float handguards like this one here in Mlok. Now we've already have this one installed on a rifle, and this happens to be the lightweight version because it doesn't have a Picatinny rail on top, whereas the standard version has a full Picatinny rail, but they install just the same, as do the keymod versions of these same rails. So let's set this aside for a moment and we'll show you what comes in the box and the tools that you will need to install. When you first receive your Midwest Industries Gen 3 handguard, you'll notice it comes with the handguard itself, and some of the hardware is already installed. These two screws, as well as the torque plate, which is back here. Additionally, in the package, you will find a wrench. Last is this small bag, which comes with an Mlok compatible Magpul rail and this green adhesive, and we'll show you how to use that once we get to the install. The last thing that you'll find in the package, if you're like most men, is the directions. Please take some time to read these. Sit down, grab your favorite beverage, and read them, and have them available as a reference for you. They are very informative, they're well thought out, easy to follow along, but these can save you a lot of hassle. You are going to need some tools to correctly install the handguard onto your AR. If you don't have these tools, make sure that you get the proper tools, or if you don't feel comfortable using the tools, make sure you seek the assistance of a qualified armorer or gunsmith. The first tool that you're going to need that you might not have if you're new to this, or if you don't build that many ARs, is a vise and some sort of upper receiver holding fixture or jig. The one we're using here is the Geisley reaction rod, and it works great for doing installs like this, installing rail pieces, because you can rotate it. It just is an awesome tool. So I really recommend this, but it's not cheap. But if you're building a lot of ARs or working on a lot of ARs, it's worth its weight in gold. It's just awesome. Basic vise, nothing special there. Starting with the tools, you will need the wrench that Midwest Industries provides. This fits their barrel nut, and then it has a 1/2-inch square drive socket for your torque wrench or ratchet handle. Speaking of torque wrenches, you will need a foot-pound torque wrench. What I find handy to do my initial work, especially if I have to season new threads, is just a 1/2-inch either a breaker bar or ratchet handle, just something that I can go back and forth with without having to worry about damaging my torque wrench. Speaking of torque wrenches, you will also need an inch-pound torque driver. The torque value needed for the screw hardware is 55 inch-pounds, so make sure it covers that range. And then to go with that, you will need the appropriate bits. The bit size for the hardware on the rail is 5/32, and then you'll also need any other bits for the fasteners on any accessories that you may be installing. You'll also need tools to remove and install your gas block. Now for me, that's going to be a hammer, a punch that can punch out that taper pin or put in the taper pin. A small little bench block like this from Brownells really helps do the job to hold everything while I'm securing that gas block back in place. Some little cloth rags, these were great for just cleaning up excess thread lockers, things like that, so I'm just going to use these small patches. Some cotton swabs come in handy for putting on the grease or thread locker or anti-seize that you're using. And then last, you'll also need some degreasing agent. I use denatured alcohol, but you could use acetone, alcohol, or other like chemicals to remove any old grease or lubricants that might be on the threads or assembly of your AR. We'll show you where to do that as we get to the install. To begin our installation, we need to remove your existing handguard, flash hider, gas block, delta ring assembly, or barrel nut from your upper receiver. Now obviously if you're a new build, you could skip this, but if you have an existing upper that has all of those things, you'll need to remove that. If you have any questions on how to remove those items, there are other tutorials online. We may do one in the future. Otherwise, contact the manufacturer and they may be able to provide some assistance, or again, seek the assistance of someone who knows what they're doing. So we're going to start, we're just going to put this in our fixture here just to hold it so we have an extra hand. It's very important to apply some anti-seize or moly grease to the threads of your upper receiver. Because the barrel nut is a different material, we want to make sure we put something there to prevent those dissimilar metals from seizing up. Now if you are going to be using an anti-seize, make sure you're using one that is compatible with aluminum. Some anti-seize on the market has products and chemicals that will actually over time be bad for aluminum. There is some debate whether the anodizing helps or not, but you want to make sure you're using the proper stuff. Moly grease works good too. We're just going to take a little bit, apply it to a swab. And we don't need to put a lot on. And again, what I like about the reaction rod is I can just rotate as I go. And you don't have to be surgical precise because it's going to spread with the threads anyway. So now we're just going to move this aside for a second and we're going to prep the handguard. What we need to do to prep the handguard is remove the 2 screws and remove the torque plate. And again, that uses that 5/32 size bit. Now we're going to install the barrel to the upper receiver. Now you notice your barrel has an indexing pin on the top, and that indexing pin lines up with the groove on the top of your upper receiver, so it'll go in like that. Now before I install a barrel, I will also put either some moly grease or anti-seize on the barrel extension. You'd be surprised how many manufacturers don't do this. A light coating to cover the barrel extension will do. So we're going to install it. So the barrel, this collar here, is fully seated against the upper receiver. The last item remaining in your handguard is the barrel nut. We can go ahead and take that out now, and we're going to degrease the exterior surface of the barrel nut as well as the interior portion of the handguard. Next, we're going to install the barrel nut. Now you'll notice that there's the teeth of the barrel nut. Those actually face the front of the gun. We're just going to thread these on by hand. We're going to lock the upper, so the barrel extension is secured on that Geisley reaction rod. And if you have a clamp type fixture, that would work just fine as well. Take the barrel nut wrench provided by Midwest Industries, line it up so you're engaging 3 of the teeth with the tool. Now if this is a new build, you're going to want to season the threads, and what I mean by that is you're going to want to tighten, loosen, tighten, loosen, tighten, loosen 3 times, and that'll help season the threads. Now I've done this enough where I don't need to use torque each time, but if you're new, 40 foot-pounds, loosen it with not the torque driver, but either a breaker bar or a ratchet handle, loosen it, retorque to 40, loosen it, retorque to 40. I like to do that 3 times, and then I will apply my final torque. The torque for the barrel nut is 40 foot-pounds, so we're going to set our torque wrench to 40. Now the correct way to install a torque driver is so it is at 90 degrees for proper torque angle. So we're going to apply .40 foot-pounds of torque, and when we have that, you'll feel the torque wrench click and you'll hear it click. 40 foot-pounds is not that much. You don't want to over tighten that, so it's really important to use the proper tool for this. Now we're going to install the gas block and tube. I'm using a pinned gas block, so I will install this. Can rotate, just get my pin in place, tighten the set screws, and you can use some high heat adhesive here, such as Rockset. Some companies are using high temperature Loctite. If you're going to use something, that's fine. Just make sure that you know that you used a high quality thread locker, and these might be difficult to remove in the future. I've heard a few horror stories where, you know, guys are having issues trying to remove gas blocks only to find out that they had some thread locker or, you know, other high heat adhesive, and they're basically breaking these set screws, which makes removal really difficult. We don't need to put a ton of torque on there because the pin is actually going to be doing the majority of the work for me. So what I'm going to do now is use this block, grab my punch and hammer, and I'm going to finish driving the pin until it's in place like so. And we can move on to applying some green adhesive on the outside of the barrel nut. I like to go ahead and apply the thread locker to a swab, and you can also put it directly on the barrel nut and spread it around. So in addition to a mechanical lock of the handguard clamping around the barrel nut, there's also going to be a chemical lock of this adhesive. Make sure you're putting a healthy amount. You don't need it dripping off of it, but you want to make sure it's spread out and coated on the entire exterior portion. Don't put this anywhere else. Don't put it on the screws. Don't put it on other hardware. Now we're ready to install the handguard. We can just slide the handguard straight back. Don't worry about the torque plate and the other hardware. We're going to be installing that in just a moment. Might be just a little bit tight of a fit, but it'll go on just like so. Now we can rotate the upper for a better view for you guys. And we can drop in the torque plate, which goes just like so. And these two holes there will align with the two holes on the bottom of the handguard. And we want to make sure this is flat and back. And you can see these fingers of the torque plate, and those are anti-rotation. That's your anti-rotation device. So it's a really great system. It works out really slick. Go ahead and take the two 1032 screws. They should go right through the torque plate, and we're just going to hand tight. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to check for alignment, make sure the top Picatinny rail is aligned with the upper, just to make sure they're in alignment and nice and true. Now I can go ahead and rotate this back over, make sure that the torque plate is in proper position, and we can tighten these two screws here to 55 inch-pounds. Don't over torque them. Now you can go ahead and install any Mlok accessories. So you can install a light mount, you can install rail pieces to put on vertical grips or any other accessories that you may like. Or if you want to cover up the rail a little bit for protection as well as comfort, you can also get various rubber, rail protection pieces like this one from Magpul. Otherwise Ergo Grip makes one as well. So really the sky's the limit. Just make sure you have the appropriate size fastener. And installing Mlok gear is so easy. All we're going to do is we're just going to make sure these lugs are horizontal or in line with the barrel. Go ahead and install them into the Mlok slot of your choice. And as you're tightening, and again, just snug, we don't need to apply a lot of torque at this point, those lugs will actually rotate and then they'll lock in the piece. And then we're just going to tighten these to 15 inch-pounds with your torque driver. Last step, of course, is to install the muzzle device of your choice. Make sure you don't over torque that as well. And if you're going to be using a suppressor, make sure you're using shims or peel washers. You never want to use a crush washer on a muzzle device that may have a suppressor mounted to it. And that is just how easy installation is. You can see we have a nice, slim, lightweight, low-profile, free-float handguard. It protects the gas block. I'm a big believer of buying rails that cover those low-profile gas blocks to protect the gas block. We can install our front sight for a longer sight radius, whereas if we had to have it back where the gas block was. And it offers accessory mounting all over with the Mlok compatibility. Now we're going to be doing a full review of these handguards coming up, so if you're interested in learning more about the usability and our thoughts of it, make sure you check out that. This is just the installation video that we will reference in that review. We hope you found this video helpful. Whenever you're working with firearms, make sure you're doing so safely. Always make sure your work table is clear of any ammunition. The firearms you're working on are unloaded and safe. Thank you guys very much for watching. You can learn more about us on our Facebook, our channel pages, our webpage. You can leave some comments. We'd love it if you share, and we'd love it if you would subscribe. Have a great day.